My name is Sarah, and for 15 years I was the perfect corporate wife to my husband Julian. I met him when he had nothing but a rusty car and a big dream, and I was the one who worked 2 jobs to pay his tuition while he built his tech startup. I sacrificed my own career as a lawyer to raise our 2 children and manage our household, so he could focus on becoming one of the youngest billionaires in the country. I thought we were a team until our 15th anniversary when I walked into a restaurant and saw him holding hands with a 19-year-old girl named Tiffany, who happened to be our daughter's former classmate. Julian didn't even look guilty when I confronted him. Instead, he looked at me with cold eyes and told me that I had become boring and that he deserved someone who matched his current status. He had spent the last year secretly moving our marital assets into offshore accounts and shell companies that I didn't even know existed. When I filed for divorce, he laughed in my face and told me that according to the ironclad prenuptial agreement I signed when we were poor, I would only get a few $1,000s and a small apartment in a bad neighborhood. He threw me out of our $50 million mansion that night, and even managed to turn our teenage son against me by promising him a fleet of luxury cars if he stayed with his father. I spent the first month in a state of shock, living in a tiny studio apartment, and crying myself to sleep every night. But then I remembered who I was before I became Julian's wife. I was the top student in my law class with a mind for forensic accounting, and I decided that if Julian wanted to play dirty, I would show him what a real shark looks like. I spent the next 2 years working in total silence as a freelance legal consultant under a fake name, and I slowly started piece together the web of lies he had built. I discovered that Julian's latest multi-billion-dollar merger was based on inflated revenue figures and forged contracts, which is a serious federal crime. I didn't go to the police right away because I wanted him to be at the very top before I pushed him off the cliff. I used my savings to hire a private investigator who caught Julian and Tiffany in a series of illegal drug parties and shady business deals. While Julian was busy buying Tiffany yachts and private islands, I was secretly buying up the debt of his primary suppliers. By the time his big merger day arrived, I owned 40% of his company's outstanding debt through a dozen different holding companies. On the morning of the most important board meeting of his life, I walked into the room wearing a power suit and the emerald necklace he had once given me as a fake token of love. Julian looked like he had seen a ghost and tried to have security remove me, but I dropped a folder on the table that contained the proof of his financial fraud and his drug-fueled parties. I told the board members that I was the primary creditor of the company, and that I was calling in all the loans effective immediately unless Julian was removed as CEO, and his entire share of the company was liquidated to pay off the debts. The board members, who were already tired of Julian's erratic behavior, didn't hesitate to turn on him. Within 4 hours, Julian was stripped of his title, and his security clearance was revoked. But I wasn't done yet because I had also filed a massive civil lawsuit for the assets he had hidden during our divorce. Because I had proof of his fraud, the court reopened our divorce settlement and awarded me 90% of his remaining wealth, as well as the mansion he had thrown me out of. As the police arrived to arrest him for corporate fraud, I watched from the window as Tiffany packed her bags and left him the moment she realized his bank accounts were frozen. Julian begged me for mercy and said he still loved me, but I just looked at him and said that I wasn't his boring wife anymore. I was the owner of his legacy. I won back the respect of my children who finally saw the truth about their father, and I turned that mansion into a shelter for women who have been financially abused by their partners. Julian is currently serving a 10-year sentence in federal prison, while I am leading the company he thought he stole from me. I learned that the best revenge isn't just taking someone's money. It is showing them that they were never the genius they thought they were, without the woman who stood behind them from the start. Now every time I see his name in the news as a fallen tycoon, I just smile and take another sip of my coffee, because I am finally the hero of my own story.